All right, gentlemen, let's welcome back to the show, Mr. Josh. How are you, sir?
Good to be here.
Yeah, good to have you
Good
on.
to be here. It's a high point of my book release, getting a tattoo and coming on this show.
Of course it is.
Tattoo of the crew review.
Of the crew review.
That's
yeah.
right.
That'll be right.
Maybe.
Right ass
ideas.
cheek.
That's right. All right, Josh. TREADSTONE EXILE is now on bookshelves everywhere. So can you give a quick sketch and an outline of what Adam Hayes is up to this time in your Ludlum series?
Well, this time he is, like the title describes, he's been exiled for what happened in the first book. And I wanted to kind of drill a little deeper into him, the decisions he made, and some of the things that I threw in the first book. The idea is when you're working against an icon like Bourne, you got to do, you got to work hard to kind of like get out from under that shadow. And it started with a different type of character and different types of experiences. And so all while, making sure I stay true to the all killer, no filler brand name.
Yes.
Yeah, we hashtagged that for you.
Yeah, that's right.
You
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, with Exile, your craft seems to take a massive leap ahead of where a high starting point in the first Ludlum book that you put out. What were some of the major lessons from book 1 to book 2 that helped you grow with what we see as a massive improvement as an author?
Well, I guess the first thing was like I broke this like long-standing rule of don't read your reviews, which I typically stay away from the ones on Amazon, but I read the ones from, I think it was Publishers Marketplace and Kirkus. And usually I'm like, whatever, you don't know what you're talking about. But there were a few points in there that I was like, they got a point, and I'm going to step it up because, I try to come into every book with a little chip on my shoulder, and no matter what you're writing, your name's on it. So like, it needs to be better than what you wrote last time. And so I went in here and I was like, all right, you said I failed here, and here. The biggest thing was like, I think it was in Kirkus said that, Adam Hayes is talking about how he doesn't want to kill anybody. And then by page like 10, he's killing everybody. And I was like,
loved it though.
Yeah, but I was like, damn, that's a good point. And so like, how do you solve that problem? So, I kind of like went in with these things. Like I wanted to make sure that the action scenes I wrote, I'd never written a scene like that, or maybe no one had ever seen a scene like that. And obviously I wanted to make sure everything was grounded in realism, but like I wanted to I wanted the scenes that he was in to be like a little more lived in is the word that I use. Like,
right.
And so I focused a little bit more on the detail, try to change up the way I start chapters, and working with, instead of using action as a crutch, I wanted to use action as a character.
Okay.
Well, last time out you were launching a new series, so the story was a little bit more contained. It took place in several locations, but the TREADSTONE EXILE at least feels like a much broader canvas. The story seems more in the Ludlum spirit. It's more expansive. It's more weight. The stakes seem more weighty. Was that a conscious effort on your part, or was it just inspiration that led you that way?
Well, I kind of started the first one with some homages there to Ludlum, and I kind of wanted to deepen that, but also, it's hard for me to write a purely stateside thriller because, having been a cop and having been in the Army, I know that like, if you do something in the States, you're really it's not going to last that long, no matter how much you suspend disbelief.
Right. Yeah.
And I've always wanted to write a book in Africa, especially in Grand Bassam. And I'm always looking for that place that kind of allows you, like when I start off a book, I always look for like, where can I go do the most damage? And like Africa is like one of the perfect places. There's so much chaos there. No one knows what's going on.
Right.
And so like you take kind of what has been looked at as a bad thing and you put like a person that does bad things, but he has a good heart in that situation. And then you just kind of like see what happens. And I think that being able to jump from there back to DC and some of these other places, like kind of moved the lens back enough to just like really widen the left and right boundaries of the book. And I think it gave it a little richness to it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Were you conscious of the fact that the scope was wider on this book?
I wasn't at first, because when you're, you know how it is, when you're writing, you're in the scene, you're like there. But I wanted like a juxtaposition between when I went back to, the States or whenever, and like, how do you play the two places off each other and the two, what we take for advantage versus really what's out there. And like at the end, I was like, I don't think it's like a gray man, like where they're going like all over the place, but I felt that it had enough places that almost felt like Bond, like where the hell is the Chinchilla? How do you even pronounce that? And I don't know. I was just looking for places where shady stuff could happen.
Yeah.
Africa,
well, the show
those places.
Yeah.
Well, staying with this, the theme of world building with the Treadstone Resurrection and the Treadstone Exile, you've laid the groundwork that could lead to some very interesting storylines down the road for Adam Hayes. But do you ever find yourself thinking ahead with anticipation to like the next book or the next two books as you write, or do you get so engrossed with your current work that you can't see past the end pages until it's been written?
Well, one goal, like I started, I want to do this, and this, but like the overarching goal was like, I want to get Hayes back to the States. I want to get him back with his family. Cause for me, starting out the way it did in Resurrection, that was like a cool thing, but it's like, if I was a reader, I'd be like, dude, what is he going to be like talking about his family in book 30 when he's like, I really, really can see my son now who's 20. And, at the same time, it's always fascinated me, like, what would a dude like Adam Hayes like do on a Sunday morning? So, the kids are getting up, the wife's telling him to like, why you leave your freaking, my wife used to get mad at me when I was on SWAT all the time because we go to the range, I'd leave like, I think I got them all, but there'd be bullets in my pocket.
Oh yeah, in your cargo pant pockets, and they're going in the
you like forget
washing
it
machine
somehow, and like you're just sitting there, and she's doing throws everything into the dryer,
ding,
and you're watching TV, and you hear dunk, dunk, dunk,
brass
and
out
you're like,
there.
yeah, you're like, oh god, I know what that is, and like eventually they learn, and you're just like trying not to look at her, and she's gets so pissed because like nothing ever happened, but we like, we got a little kid who's like running around, and there's like fucking 40 millimeter. It's like,
but honey, we gotta get the lead off of you when you come off the range. I mean, it's very important.
I was like, I swear to God, I checked my pockets, and
Well, now you can just reload because it's all polished brass anyway. So
yeah,
dude. So you're a police officer. You were a police officer. Did you ever go on vacation and not like bring your weapon or anything, and then have a random round in one of your bags and go, sorry, TSA?
I did not, but I did come back from Iraq with some stuff I shouldn't have had. We had the old Blackhawk bag, like the assault pack, and it had like that little deal in the back where the camelback goes.
Yeah.
And like, I thought I'd shaken it out, but it had like this little piece of plastic, I guess. And like, it's like this piece of plastic, and I guess it's supposed to keep like the moisture condensation off your back. Anyway, like there was one of the freaking the detonators for like what's a
det
not
cord
linear flex det cord, like wedged up in there, and I'm like, you go through there,
it's no bueno.
Like, they're like doo-doo-doo-doo, and I'm like, what the, and, they're like shaking my bag out, and I'm like, there's nothing in there, dude, and they send it back through the freaking x-ray machine, and I see the outline. I'm like, oh Jesus, like how did that get in there? And
here you go.
Yeah, and they pull it out, and they're like, what's this? And I was like,
oh my gosh, such idiots.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know, but you probably should throw that away.
Don't put it in the incinerator.
And so before they had like shaken us out and everything, like before you leave, they shake you out, they do all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like anybody gets caught with some stuff, like Article 15, we're gonna hammer your nuts and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, whatever, it's not gonna have to be. I'm squared away. And then you get there and you're like, oh shit.
Here comes a set of diamonds.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, you're 2 books in with Adam Hayes. Are you getting more into your character's head and seeing more of the personal struggles and the desires and maybe the way he thinks than you did from the beginning?
I think it's a natural progression to do that, but the way I write, and I've just learned, we've all heard like a pantser and outliner. So I'm like what has been called a pantser, but I read a book where they called it organic writing, and I think that's more professional sounding. So as an organic author, I spend a lot of time at the beginning, almost like a method actor. I like set up, this is what the dude does. This is his thought process. I understand him like almost like a cop would understand like a suspect.
Right.
And then I just let him roll. And so, if I ever had a plot twist or whatever, it's not because I came up with it. It's because like, I'm like, hey dude, we need to go over here and do this. And Adam Hayes is like, nah, man, we're going over here. We're going to do this. I'm like, all right, let's go.
So he pretty much tells you in your head,
yeah,
this is what I'm doing, man. Write it.
Yeah, or just, how it is. You like get into that. I mean, when I write and I'm in the pocket, I feel that like the dude's just like, I'm just sitting next to him with like an old, camera. Like, where are we going next, Adam? And he's like, we're going to go blow some shit up. And I'm like, I'm down. Like, let me get my seatbelt on.
Dude, isn't that a weird feeling though? As writers, I mean, we all experience that. But isn't that the weirdest fucking thing to know, well, and also to trust that the story's just gonna unfold and just go with it.
Weirder than that is that like somewhere in me is an Adam Hayes, and like he didn't just come out of thin air. So I'm like, damn, that's who would pour gas on a person? And I'm like, I've done that in 2 books, so I guess I would.
Dark, man.
Yeah, it's like, sorry, mom.
Well, fiction. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I was gonna say it's fiction. It's fiction.
Yeah. So you kind of answered this, but I want to take a little bit of a deeper dig into it. You said you're organic and you kind of know the character and where he's thinking and everything. Do you just like how much character prep did you do on Adam Hayes? Like how much of his archetype or whatever that you created was in your head going in? Did you do an extensive background legend? I mean, what is your process for that?
Like I sat there and I kind of was like, here's what I'd like to do. I want to create a newer character. Like, for me, like the most successful ways to approach like stories and characters and problems is to use like the inversion theory. You like take something and just flip it upside down, or you take 2 unlike things and you're like, I wonder how an avocado and like a beer would taste. Like, oh, and you put it in there and you're like, that was terrible. And eventually you learn like what kind of would work together and what doesn't. And, with Adam Hayes, like the reason I'm not an outliner is because I have ADD. And like, once I get the character spun up enough, he's like, hey, let's go. And I'm, I just let him roll. So as soon as like I get to that point where like I'm playing with them enough, I got like an visual idea of like what a scene would look like or smell like. The moment he starts pulling on the leash, man, I just pop it and I'm like, where are we going? And I understand how a lot of people say that it's a lot more trouble down the road because, you got to do rewrites and everything. But I look at my first draft as like, I hope Tom's not listening, but Tom's how it works. Like that first draft is like it's a vomit draft. It's like an outline. It's all of it into one. And it's like, I got a story, like I can start polishing a story as opposed to like, I've been sitting here for 50 pages and I don't really like where I'm going. Like, for me, the biggest thing I've had to fight, especially with this Treadstone, is pulling myself out of flow. And like, like that flow's there to take you. And like, for me, being writer blocked or whatever is something's not right. There's a problem. And it could be a plot problem, a pacing problem. But most of the times it's me being like, I'm trying to get ahead of the horse or whatever. And I've known that, like, hey, if you start off with just like, hey, just throw it on there. I want to start off chapter 1, like Adam Hayes is wearing a pink tutu, and then he's got a gun, and I'm like, yeah.
Cool.
Then he's got 2 guns, and I'm like, fuck yeah. Then, then when I go back, he's like, he's not wearing a pink tutu, like
you don't want one gun.
Well, Josh, do you write like several chapters and then go back to, like, say you're in the beginning of the story, or do you just balls to the wall?
Write a book, and then I go back.
Yeah.
No
self-editing as you go.
No, I mean, what's the point?
Right.
Well, I mean, like, seriously, like, I found, and this isn't me, this is from studying and listening and mistakes that I've made, and it works for me. I'm not saying anybody else go out and do this, because it's not like an organized way, but it's like, you ever meet somebody who knows something like so well because they've spent so much time in it that they can explain, like the best way I can put it is, when I was in Afghanistan, we were with this mortar guy, and we were using these computers that would tell you, like, where to shoot. It's like, hey, put the sight on this thing, level it up. Well, for some reason that computer wasn't working, and the dude who was the section sergeant, he was like this crusty guy, knew this stuff backwards and forwards, and he's like, all right, fuck that. He's like, we're gonna use a compass. And I'm like, dude, this team's calling for fire. Like,
now
they're getting shot at, and they're calling this stuff pretty close, and you want me to, like, lay a gun off of an azimuth, like, with a compass? Yeah. And I'm like, he's like, yeah, it's got mils on there, the same thing as your scope. And I'm like, well, yeah, but he's like, just do it. And so I'm like, shit. So I did it, and it worked, thank God.
Yeah.
But afterwards I was like, dude, like, how did you know how to do that? He's like, I've done this so long that I understand there's only 6,400 mils in a circle. And I know that, we're set here. And, like, he understood not only, like, the process, he understood why the process was a process, so he could break it because he knew, like, these rules are here. And that's what Tom Colgan's been hammered in my head since I started Treadstone. He's like, rules don't matter until you get called out on a rule. Right? He's like, just write your book, and, like, if it's a problem, you can fix it. But if you go in with, like, a bunch of problems, like, I can't build this because of this, or I can't do this because of this, like, you're taking your creativity and shrinking it.
Yeah,
and it's like, you start to get books that feel and sound the same.
Right. Might as well have a computer write the damn thing.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's at least my thought.
Well, getting back,
just roll with it, man.
Let's roll.
So, and maybe somewhere in that was actually the answer to this too. But getting back to Adam Hayes, how do you continue to differentiate him in a field that's so popular with protagonists that so many of us know and new ones coming along every day? Is it more through character or through story, or is it hodgepodge of both?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like, what I've noticed a lot, like, what I've always tried to do is, like, if you got a guy that's he's a badass, and we know that, like, the reader knows you're not going to kill him. They know you might want to mess him up, but you never see, like, I mean, except in Graney's new, like, Relentless, like, there's points in that book, y'all have read it, where you're like, damn, is he done writing? Like, he's got to kill this dude. And you know what I mean? You're like, shit, I guess we're done with Gray Man.
He's moving on.
He's moving on. Yep.
And
good
so
run.
I'm like, God, I called him. I was like, hey, man, are we done? He's like, no. I'm like, so he's going to be alive. We're not going back to write books before. And he's like, no, he's
mangled.
good. And so,
mangled.
Yeah, but what that taught me, and that and other things, was that we get to see a broken, battered Court, and he does this real well in his other books too, is like, we get to see Court the day after, when he's, like, hobbling to the bathroom and he's gotten the shit kicked out of him. Everywhere else, a lot of other books, like, you get them fresh. They're just like, oh, I've been healed, I'm good to go. And so I like to take the moments between the two books when they're really a changed person, and then, like, go from that, utilizing, like, the thought where, like, hey, if they learned something, it hadn't really been concreted yet. So it's probably like, like we all do. We all make mistakes. Like, man, that's a great idea. And you're like, hold my beer, and then a minute later you're like, I need to go to the hospital. That was not a great idea.
Well, so Josh, there's a force all writers feel that compels them to transform the stories bouncing around in our heads into something others want to read. Doing so, it opens up us writers up to criticism. And in your case, which critic do you fear the most? Is it you or the readers?
I will tell you without a doubt that I am 1,000 times harder on myself than anybody will ever be, because I started this as a reader first. And I realized going in that, like, you're making a contract with the reader. And so I will outwork myself and any critic. Like, yeah, we're going to miss things. Sometimes things aren't going to work out right. You know, it's like throwing a knuckleball. Like, when it works, it's badass, but sometimes it just gets hung out there and somebody takes a yard.
Smashed. Yeah.
But it's not like that guy that just like, well, fuck it, I'm quitting. I'm going to be a fastballer or go like work at Wendy's or something. That's what he does. And so, you know, I hold myself to a higher standard with every book. And for me, like, if I'm not feeling it, I don't write. You know, I'll do something else. I'll do some research. I'll go whatever. But like, I'm never going to sit down and be like, this fucking job, here we go. And then blah, 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 you know. It's like, that's not fair, dude. These books are expensive, man. Somebody giving money. Like, I don't want anybody to ever say like, hey, you've written a boring book, or hey, this book like felt like the other book you wrote or whatever. I want them to say, yeah, we see some warts, you're working, but like, this was better than the last book.
Yeah.
Josh Hood isn't phoning it in.
No,
Josh
Not
Hood,
today.
Knuckleballer. I'm getting
Knuckleballer.
That's right.
I'm getting a shirt. It says Josh Hood, Knuckleballer.
Knuckleballer.
Right.
Well, we're all.
That's what.
Yeah, go ahead, Josh.
That's what keeps you guys doing this, right? And this and everything is like, this is a passion. This isn't something that like people ask me, hey, I want to be a writer. What's your advice? I'm like, don't fucking do it. It's like somebody come here. I mean, I'm being real. Because like,
do it.
You're having fun right now, but like nobody sees a time when you're like laying on the floor, like, what the hell, like,
or 3 o'clock in the morning, you're still typing away, and you're like, dude, I gotta be up at 5 a.m. because I got a fucking day job, but you know, this is what I'm writing, and it sucks because I'm gonna delete it tomorrow because it's 1,000 words of shit.
Yeah,
I mean, I've had days literally where you're like, got a deadline, and like, that's 5,000 words of shit. It's got to go. And it's like, you're screwed, but it's like, it's crap.
Right.
And if, you know, I'm not feeling it, they're not going to feel it. And so, you know, it's like, oh, it's fun to be a writer. Yeah, it's great. But it's like, somebody came up to me and was like, hey, I'm going to try heroin. What do you think? I'd say, don't do it. You know, you're going to become a junkie. And it's like,
but
I love
you don't have a choice though, Josh, do you? You really don't have a
with
choice.
The heroin or with this?
Well, the heroin is so damn
no.
Being a storyteller, dude, you're a storyteller. Like, and if you weren't doing this, you would be doing it. There's no other choice around it, dude.
Well, I use the Cortez method. Like, I set things in my path to make sure like my boats are burned and I can't go back. My latest one, you know.
Oh, there you go.
There it is.
Those freaking career killers tattooed on your hand. You're not getting a job anywhere else. So it's like, we go this way, or, you know, we march or die.
Gets preschooled out.
One of my favorite little facts about that is Josh didn't know that that's a Bosch thing. So in the novels, Harry Bosch, hold fast, is on his knuckles. Yeah. When I saw that on your knuckles, I thought it was a Bosch thing, but you did it for that reason. I love it.
It's awesome, dude.
I feel totally embarrassed because like I'm a huge Bosch and Conley fan. Like, I've read all the books and like I can't.
It's
subconsciously.
It's only mentioned in a couple books, but it's just like it either sticks with you or you don't. But I think I'm trying to remember if I think they have it on the TV show briefly, but it's not as. There's a couple books it's featured in where it's kind of important.
Well, the PD I don't think lets you have it past your quarter sleeve, right? Like, you can't have it if you're. I don't know.
We're obviously not going back there.
Yeah, his character got it in Vietnam though, or after Vietnam in the.
Well, you know, for me, it's like, sure, I love black and gray traditional tattoo because it has a meaning, you know, and it's kind of got its hooks in me when I was in the Army. But like, you learn what these tattoos mean. And like hold fast was like literally one of the very first tattoos, because back when Captain Cook took his boys down to, you know, Samoa or wherever down there, like these guys, the deckhands would get tattooed on their hands, like, you know, to remind them like, oh, you need to hold on. And my wife's like, why would you need that? And it's like, it's kind of like not a spell or whatever, but it's like, you know, they all mean something. So it's like protection. Like, hey, when this gale starts coming, like my hands know to hold fast because got tattooed on these bitches.
Well, we're all inspired by, all of us here are kind of inspired by similar authors, but we have some differences. And so for you, Josh, who and we could take a stab at it, but we won't. Who is your go-to authors for advice and feedback, maybe even some career discussions?
Obviously I lean heavily on Mark, but just because, you know, he's a great friend before he became, well, I guess he was a great writer back then, but you know, I knew Mark when he was the Gray Man, wasn't as well known as Clancy. And, you know, he taught me the hard work of the craft, you know. And then I read a book a long time ago, a writing book. I think it's James Frey or something like that. It's like how to write a good, James Frey, how to write a damn good novel, damn good thriller.
You told me that one.
He told me
I bought it because of you.
You bastard.
Man, I've got every one of them. I read it, you know, that and the world art and those things. But it talks about, you know, he was talking about, hey, he was driving down the street one day, and I think it was his book, and he saw this dude driving a Porsche with a license plate that said dues paid. And it's like he was cutting through traffic and he was doing whatever the hell, but he could because he paid his dues, right? And it's like Mark taught me that is, you know, this is a blue collar job where you got to show up, you got to do your job, you got to do it the best. And, you know,
that's an interesting twist on it, bro. But that it's a blue collar job. Like you literally 9 to 5, but you got to show up and fucking write. Because if it doesn't, if your ass isn't in the seat, it ain't happening. You ain't a writer. Well,
it's like hunting, you know, like I'll be like, the deer season comes out and you're like, you know, a couple weeks into it and you're like, dude, it's cold as shit out there. And like, oh, whatever. And then, you know, you got that guy that's like, you ain't going to kill nothing in bed. And you're like, son of a bitch. And so you go, it's right. It's like the same thing. Like I hear so many people that are like, I want to write a book. And you're like, oh yeah. And they're like, yeah, I just don't have the time. I don't have this. I don't have that. I can't do this. I don't have an idea. This is like, you don't want to write a book. You want to talk about writing a book. Like this isn't like
things.
We're not turning like lead into gold here. You know, this is hard work, and you surround yourself with people who push you. And, you know, you go in every day and you punch that clock, even if, you know, your daughter was up screaming or your wife found bullets in the dryer. You're like, hey, you know.
And you're not guaranteed success.
No.
At all, man.
For COVID, it's been hard too, because like, you know, I haven't been able to like, you can't go out in the world. So like you're kind of, for me, at least this year, it's been like go into this well of experience. And you're like, you look down and then you're like, what the hell's in here that I can use, as opposed to being like, hey, I went to Africa or where I went to DC and I smelled the smells. And that started me thinking like, dude, this was a grind this time, because it's like, everybody's locked away. You don't get to go to see the other writers. You don't get to really go to the conferences. You don't get to do all this stuff. And it was like, you know, it was a real test. It's like, are you for real, or like, are you a bitch? And I was like, hey, it ain't no bitch. I'm gonna write a book and it's gonna be good. But it's hard work, and it's never done alone. You know, that's the thing. A lot of times people don't give props to guys like you, guys like Tom Colgan, you know, other writers, people that push you, but also like people that come up with great covers and all this stuff. Like, it feels like you're digging ditches, but like, it's good to know that you're not alone.
Yeah, for sure. Well, speaking of not alone, do you use beta readers at all?
Mm-mm.
No. So you're the eyes and the ears of everything until it heads off to.
I sound like such a douche right now.
No,
No, not at all.
No.
I mean, my thing is like people that go to writers groups, and I'm sure they're great, but like that's just an excuse not to write, and that's an excuse like not to trust yourself. You know, it's like this is like I'm here before this keyboard. And like I got to put my big boy pants on and make big boy decisions. There are times, obviously, where I'll call Tom and be like, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this," and he'll, yank on my collar and stuff. But I mean, this sounds terrible, but like I don't really care, like what other people think they would do with my story that I've set up on a nice little tee for them. You know, it's like. I get that. I appreciate that. But when you ask for advice, you get advice. And, it's kind of like, well, I would do this. And you're just like, the biggest thing I learned was like to take, to look at the source, right?
Sure.
Like I'll go to Mark or I'll go to somebody and be like, hey, man, I'm stuck or whatever like this. But usually it's simply just the talking. You know what you need to do.
Yeah.
You're just like, man, am I psyching myself out? Am I doing this or whatever? But, it's like no one's going to love you like you. No one's going to be able to like write your story like you. And I feel that too many hands in the pot, like spoil the stew.
There you go.
All right. I like it.
Well, so
we mentioned this douche.
No, not at all.
Man,
it's just me. I do it all.
And we were. I mean, I don't think Mike was talking about like a writers group so much as he was talking about like a Mark Graney or someone else like that who is going to give you that kind of feedback. And what makes that person good. But we mentioned this before, and actually Mark's mentioned on our show that you're one of his early readers. You're a trusted reader for him, and I know you've helped others, including yours truly, work out problems in their stories or just diagnose what is working and what isn't. Not the thing. I told these guys is the thing that was great about your advice is you didn't tell me to do something you wanted me to do. You basically said, look, when I read this, this is what I thought was the story, and this stuff was extraneous, and that was a huge help, and it was a huge help early. But so you have a gift for distilling the work of others. My question, though, is, are you able to do that as easily with yourself, or is it an entirely different matter?
He's already answered.
It's entirely different. And actually, like, I have this motto here that, like, I try to set mottos and crap like that. But this is one that, like, I started halfway through Treadstone and I don't know if y'all can see that.
Yeah, right fearlessly.
Right,
there you go,
fearlessly.
Dude.
And I actually told Mark about it because, like, I was talking to him about something, and it's like, the more you learn about certain things, like, the more you start to like troubleshoot yourself. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, I could do this, but this, or I could do this, but guys aren't like, buying it. And then, I linked that to the idea someone said, like, they don't ever talk about a project they're working on with anybody. And I was like, well, why do you do that? And he's like, well, once you talk about it, it becomes real to other people. And so you could just be talking out loud, and it's like, I want to write about this guy that does this and this. And like, if you're talking to an agent, they're like, that's badass, write that book. And you're like, wait, like that wasn't a book. That was just an idea. But then they're expecting that. And so like, I learned that I was taking
that's interesting.
A lot of people's opinions and a lot of people's thoughts and a lot of people's, perceptions onto myself, and like using them as like decorations within my creative space. So like I have an office, and like I was inviting people into my creative space, and they're like tracking mud on the carpet, putting their little ideas like, and so it really started to become a stumbling block for me creatively, because I would catch myself in this like analysis paralysis mindset where it's like, hey, well, what about this? Well, it could be like this, and it could be, and it's just like, dude, and Tom would say it, just write. And, that was one of the things that like, hey man, not only just write, but write fearlessly. Like, you're not going to create something that's good. I mean, nobody knows what the next hit's going to be.
Yeah. Right.
And like, so it's like you look at the lady who wrote Harry Potter and other successful books where like all these people passed on them, like experts passed on them.
Right.
And then she's like chilling in Scotland with $1 billion in the bank.
The castle, dude, right?
Yeah.
Well,
And
Josh,
like,
do you think there's a formula or like I mean, we talked about a little bit, or like a set of unwritten rules authors writing thrillers in particular must adhere to? And if there is, I mean, in your opinion, what's the most important one?
The rules I use are I come up with the character first, and then I come up with an antagonist, and then I come up with the place, and then I come up with the problem. And then from there, it's just like, if you can't, like when I'm outlining, like I have them on like little Post-it notes. I'm like, got this dude, I got the bad guy. Like, who's going to start off? Who wants to draw first blood? And then I'll be like, hey, let's try this and whatever. And so like, this dude's going to do this first. And then what does that make him do? Like, that makes him like his problem, right? And it's like, how's he going to react to that problem? And then you're kind of going. And then it's just like, the only other advice, and I tell this to anybody who listen, is like, if I get stuck, I either blow something up or I kill somebody.
There it is. Wait, say that again. There it is, folks. What are you going to do if you get stuck
in a book? Yeah, kill somebody or blow something up.
Shit, we'll drink to that one.
That's the way to do the
unless it's a romance.
I don't know.
Then you still kill somebody.
There you go.
Yeah, just
spice
like,
it up
whatever.
a little bit.
It's just like
maybe that's the new
met
formula.
Anybody that's like, I don't like an explosion or a firefight.
Yeah, you're reading the wrong genre.
My readers, yeah.
Go find a different book.
So we kind of touched on this before the show. People didn't have the full skinny on our discussion, but so I'll ask you with the audience in mind: are you feeling any more comfortable in your skin as a writer, or is the struggle for your self-acceptance and your accomplishments still that brass ring that's just out of reach?
Well, I'm feeling more confident as a writer because I've worked very hard in the last year to do that. I've really taken time to focus on something that I'd never even considered till I got here, which is like the mental armor or the mental toughness of writing. And
right,
a lot of these things that might sound like cocky, which I'm the least cocky person in the world, or arrogant, are things that I've had to force myself to start like saying. They're like armor that I put on every day when I'm getting ready to write.
Yeah.
And it's like, you have to be able to accept, criticism, which we all learn how to do that really fast. But the downside, like the way I was brought up, is if you talk good about yourself or like, yeah, I'm good at this, like you're like a douchebag. You're like a dude, you're like,
yeah, dude, we all had that same growing up. We all,
your dad's like, it's like,
you ain't shit,
man, I was so awesome in that game. And he's like, what about that ball you missed? Like,
right.
I'm not, and like at the time it's like, damn, that sucks. But you understand what he's trying to teach you then. They just never give you the next lesson is like, when the self-love,
right,
setting your own goals, setting achievable goals, setting, yourself in a position where you're mentally able to like shut the rest of the world off, get into your space and do what you do. And the fact is that not everybody's able to do that. And like, look at Billy Beane, the guy, he was the general manager for the A's.
Oh yeah.
He was like the top draft pick coming out of college. He had it all. There might have even been high school. He had it all. He had, he could hit, he could run, he had the look, he had everything.
Yeah.
So he gets drafted and they're like, you're going to be a star. You're going to be the shit. He had never tasted defeat or anything. Gets there, he's killing it in the double A's. He goes to the major leagues and like that doubt starts to creep in. And part of that doubt, according to him, was like, he really didn't want to be there. And he was kind of looking for that escape hatch. But the other part was like, he allowed himself mentally to start defeating himself. Like, maybe these guys are better. He allowed people to put him in a position where he wasn't comfortable.
Slippery slope.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's that looking out for yourself. That self-love is like, yeah, people read your reviews. Somebody says something that's true, you fix it. If it's not, it's gone, you know, but it's your career. It's your writing. If you're doing something you don't want to do, like, it's like trying to run with a parachute.
Yeah.
You know,
you make
Yes.
Dude, if you, I don't understand. Like, if you could say you want to be a writer all day long, but writer's right. I mean,
Well, you
that's just
guys
the end of it.
have heard the phrase that changed my life was I was 25 and I was reading Reader's Digest, and in quotable quotes there was an Alex Haley quote, and it says, "Being a writer is not about wanting, or it's not about wanting to be a writer. It's about wanting to write." And I remember at 25 sitting there thinking, what does that mean? And and you know, essentially, it's like, do you want what you perceive the lifestyle of the writer, or you just have stories to tell that you have to tell? And I, honestly, I like chewed on that for a good, 3 or 4 days before I realized what the answer was. I mean, I knew it, but like I had to be honest with myself, and I had to be like, okay, would I love the writer's life? Would I, what people at 25 perceive as a writer's life? Sure. But it honestly was the fact that I had these stories that I thought were kick ass, and I wanted to share them with somebody. So,
yeah.
Well, that's the part about attainable goals and everything. And I don't want Mark to hope he won't get pissed, but he one time told me he was making a joke about something, and it's like you go into a signing and everybody's like, "Oh, he's so great," and he's like, "That's simply because they didn't see you sitting across the street at Wendy's with your thumb up your butt eating a freaking
chili fries
sandwich and stuff." And it's just you start believing the hype, and that's not what this is about, right?
Right.
We want to get paid. You want to tell stories, but you want to tell good stories. And even if you weren't getting paid, you still be telling good stories. So
sure,
that dividing line of you're a writer and you're not. You made the New York Times list and you didn't. You didn't. Those are traps that I've fallen into in the past. But at this point in my life, it's that's bullshit.
Right.
I define my success. I define what I'm doing. And to let someone buy or rent space in my head is counterproductive.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right. You're living somebody else's dreams in life. All right, man. You survived the main portion of the interview. Yeah. This is where I'm
gonna raise a drink.
Hey, before we dive into this, I want to say that when we put our lightning round questions together, we do not look at each other's lightning round questions. It's very important for you to know going into this.
Going in,
I always feel like I'm about to get fired when I come on this show. The next day, I'm waiting for an email.
This is the trending episode of our podcast. So,
Tom, what did you say on their show? Damn
we
it!
still have Tom Colgan's show that we can show the outtakes from if he ever gives you.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, they're they were recording the whole thing, you dumbass.
Yeah, everything. All right,
need a filter.
So we'll start off easy. We won't get you in trouble this one. Name 3 objects that best describe who you are.
Keep it PG.
Nah.
Never mind.
All right, go on.
Nobody's gonna watch
this. 3 objects.
Yeah.
We would never ask Mike this question.
Damn, that's a good one. Let me see. Fuck. Why you got to start out like that? Let me see.
You can't get in trouble with this one. Well, you could, but
probably 3 objects. I never thought about an object I am. A bottle of booze.
Okay, there you go.
There you go.
Booze. Keyboard, maybe.
Here for you.
Yeah. Keyboard. I don't know, something funny and a hammer. Hammer, booze, and a can of dip. That's it.
That's perfect.
How about that?
That's Josh right there, guys.
Yeah.
There's a character in the next book right there.
Dude, we're putting that on a t-shirt, by the way.
Yeah, well, see, he didn't put any firearms in there, so I'm pretty disappointed. All right.
Oh.
That's too easy, man.
I know.
There you go.
That was pretty given. All right. Number 2. What word do you frequently use in your rough drafts that totally pisses you off when it comes time to the editing phase?
Let me see here. Began, started, start to, almost.
Beautiful.
Back then to be. Rather,
Turn that shit
really, as. I got a list.
Love that.
I have the same list, dude. I have the same list.
I got a list right there.
I love that.
I had the
I
same
keep a
list.
G up in here. And I
That
still write them.
Yeah, of course you do.
The word as.
Yeah.
Like I hate the word as, but I use it. Like if I had to count up the as's that I use in a book, like I don't understand. I can still not figure
1,000
my way around it.
Man,
Dude,
sometimes like I'll type a sentence and I'll be like, I don't want to use that word, but I can't think of a better way to say it. No, I just can't do it.
All right. I'm glad we have that same list. I feel better already.
I've cut down on my F-bombs though.
Well, that's
See, that was my one complaint, but go on.
All right.
Let's go on to the next one.
All right, number 3.
That he's cut down.
Yeah, that was cut down.
Mark Graney
Josh.
and the Swedish bikini team are trapped on top of a burning building. And you can only save one of the two. So my question is, what would Mark's eulogy say about you?
Oh, he's dead.
It would say, he's married, right? This is like a trick question now. So Mark Graney would not be on top of any building with anybody except Miss Graney. So nice try.
Yeah.
Sons of a bitch.
Great answer.
Don't worry, we'll get another crack at it.
Yeah.
Happily married.
Okay.
With a wonderful woman.
She's good.
All right.
Good gal.
So yeah, she's awesome.
We love her.
And I'm happy for him.
You have like a mulligan there?
Well,
No, that was perfect.
Chris is coming up. Yeah, Chris is coming up.
I'll come up after Sean.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you do when your entire body is covered with ink, but you think of another great tattoo?
Here.
No regrets.
No regret. Really?
Your
Not one?
entire body, like just tattoo over it. Some of it fades.
I'm glad you didn't say, "Hey,
Tattoo a white
son,
mark.
I got something that you have to do for me."
Turn around. Put this on your
I'm
back
just kidding.
shoulder.
You could totally go like bird on a wire and use the old belt sander and just I got some new spot.
Ooh.
Okay, next one should be pretty easy. What's your favorite swear word that's not the F word? That's not the F word.
Bitch.
Yeah.
All right.
That is the best word in the world. And it's gotten such a negative rap because everybody's like, you're talking negative about females.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're not.
Nope.
Like when I use the word bitch, that's nothing to do with females. And I apologize if there's any females out there that get like offended by the word. But guess what? Get over yourself. We're not talking about you.
What are we talking about, Josh? What are we
Usually
talking
use
about?
it with guys.
Talking about like there's just
Your
bitches,
boys.
man. There's everything's a bitch. This is a bitch. Like that bitch. Whatever. That has nothing to do with women.
So it's an everyday word.
Yeah.
This one might be a little
it's
harder
like-
for you, but maybe it's not. Maybe you've given some thought to this. So you had an illustrious career so far, both military and writing, and you're going to accomplish some great things going forward. So one day they're going to make a movie about Josh Hood.
Right.
Who plays Josh Hood?
Me.
Josh Hood plays Josh Hood.
Besides you, Josh, who plays Josh?
Well, you didn't say that in the question.
Yeah.
You're
Well,
right. I didn't. You're
part
you're
B.
right. But I'm
He's
amending.
like, I'm getting paid. I'm getting
I'm
paid if I'm
amending
playing
it.
Josh Hood.
You know what would be epic would be like
Toby Maguire.
not bald yet, but
Billy Bob Thornton.
dude,
Oh.
Ron Howard.
Run.
That would be hilarious.
What?
Dude, that'd be so funny.
Oh, we can't play
No,
Josh
that's like-
Hood.
I'm thinking the young Matt Damon. I'm going with the young Matt Damon for Josh Hood. I can see that.
No, I want Billy Bob
kinda
Thornton
like-
with that.
Billy Bob Thornton would be a good Josh
Ron
Hood.
Howard,
Absolutely.
though. I'm
Gotta
laughing. Ron Howard is Josh Hood.
I would just think that'd be hilarious. Be like,
we
oh,
need
Ron
to do a
Howard's
we need to
brother,
do a
that'd be
trailer that's
funny.
Ron Howard as Josh Hood.
Well,
Yeah,
Josh,
or,
does anybody ever like say you look like an actor or an
Every time, I
Who is
swear
it?
to God, I don't see this at all. Mark Wahlberg. Every time I go
Oh, yeah, I can
someplace,
see
they're
it.
like, you look like,
Oh, yeah,
I don't
I
see
can
it at
see it.
all.
Yeah.
I can see a little
I
bit.
can see it.
okay?
Like last week, I went to the freaking McDonald's and the lady like, anybody ever tell you look like Mark Wahlberg? And I'm like, yeah, but I don't see it. Y'all need to get glasses.
Give me a free burger.
Dude doesn't have the same color.
Yeah, give me my
hair.
burger.
No, you do.
My-
You remind me.
I
Little
don't
bit.
see it, man. But
A little bit.
yeah,
little
Mark
bit.
Wahlberg, he's awesome.
Yeah,
You could
he
write
is.
any book with the Mark Wahlberg method. I just want you to think on that. Think of every character Mark Wahlberg has played, which is basically Mark Wahlberg, right?
He's basically scowling at everything.
Every movie he's been in has been successful, and he's like this nice guy who like whatever. But like I was thinking, like if you ever get stuck on like a protagonist, just picture Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah,
I could see Mark Wahlberg being a garbage man, like in an action movie. He's like a garbage man. He's picking up stuff, and he's just like
kind of surly.
Something bad happens, and he just pulls out like an AK out of his dented trash can.
Yeah.
And he can do it.
It's like,
it comes.
I would buy it, dude. He's been an oil worker. He's been a cop. He's been like, even if he's a scumbag, you like him.
Yeah,
he's been a divorced dad with
like any characters except himself.
He's been. The only time he was kind of weird was when that movie where he was like, was that Reese Witherspoon?
Yeah,
like they were
Fear.
Younger.
That was his first movie.
Yeah, Fear.
That was his first
kind of
movie.
like weird. You're like, damn, Mark.
And then right after that, he was in a movie that it's one of my favorite, like undiscovered gems, Renaissance Man with Danny DeVito. And
that was a great movie.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
he played
dude,
the dumb marine. He played the dumb marine.
But that dude, you could literally put him into any plot and be like, Mark Wahlberg is.
All right, Mark Wahlberg, you're up. You're up, boy.
Yeah.
All right. So Hayes grew up riding dirt bikes, 250cc Yamahas, right? In Tennessee. So that makes me think, what was Josh Hood riding growing up?
Well, he was riding dirt bikes until I've got a younger brother who has like this preternatural ability to destroy anything with a throttle.
Oh,
I've never seen anything like it. But literally, dude, like he'll tell you the same thing. Like this guy like destroyed all of our shit, and it was like my dad was just like, "We
Not buying anything else."
Yeah, it was like get a brand new 4-wheeler. He sits on it, and you're like, dude, that's how. Like, just stay away. Like I swear, it's not even a joke. Like he broke like. We had a Honda or whatever, and he's trying to drift it around a corner. It was a nice turn, but it was like wet, and he lost it and snapped the axle. Thing was like brand new with the drive out tag. Blew an engine on a Jeep J10. Like that dude is like Evel Knievel for like cars, but he's like not good.
Dude, he's never allowed to ride any of my shit.
Retarded brother.
Stay away from my stuff.
All right. So here's your redemption on the next question. True or false? Mark Graney would save his dogs from a burning building before you.
True.
We knew that.
I'm going to say false, but he's going to try to save them both.
Nah.
He would try to get you both. He would try to get. No, the dogs.
He would run past me as he goes and gets his dogs.
Josh, you're okay. Well, I'll get back to you, buddy. I'll get back to you.
Diggy, no! Out the window, Gray Man style.
You know, this crazy thing is, so Mike had that burning building or burning something with Mark Graney, and then we don't look at each other's questions for this, and then I had the exact same one, so there's something going on there.
Yeah,
I texted Chris and I go, "Did you read Mike's questions before you sent these?" And he's like, "No," and I go, "You guys freaking both have a Mark Graney burning building question. How the hell did that happen?"
No idea.
Yeah, next time you talk to Mark, ask him what kind of car his dogs have.
Oh my God!
Oh no!
Dude, I wish we'd have known this before. We just interviewed him, so
not too long ago.
We're gonna have to freaking throw it back.
Dang it!
I mean, he loves those dogs. He takes them to the park all the time, and so like I would know, like there'd be no hesitation. It's those dogs, and they're awesome dogs. Like I can't blame him. I wouldn't save me either.
Maybe the dogs will write the Ludlum books.
All right, dude. I got the last question. It's a softball. Can't get this one wrong, dude.
Well, you can.
Up for you.
You can definitely get this one wrong.
You just don't get it wrong, please.
Don't think too hard.
Finish this sentence. The greatest author interviewing podcast is
True Reviews.
That's not the answer, though, right?
It's not, but we're going to raise a drink.
All right.
What's the answer?
The answer is right in this cup.
There it
Thanks
is,
for
brother.
coming on, Josh.
Going down my gullet.
Pal. Good man. Good
Thanks for having me, guys. And
even better book.
Yeah, you need to edit this so I can keep writing those.
No,
this is
dude,
roll
you
the
killed
dice,
it.
baby. Roll the dice.
This is going to be a smash, man. This is going to be a smash.
Treadstone
I hope
Exile.
so. I hope
Dude,
so.
you raised that bar. And
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
raised that bar and you slayed it. Killed it.
I hope so. I hope so.
All right.
brother.
Cheers to you, pal.
All righty. See y'all
See you,
later.
All right, boys. We had Josh Hood on the show today. His second Treadstone novel,
Woohoo!
Exile, is out. Make that in focus. This was fantastic, guys. His craft has really taken a leap up in the atmosphere here. We're really excited to see him with all the success that he's absolutely earned with that blood, sweat, and tears. So go buy yourself a copy, and also pick up Resurrection.
Oh, his other one. Yeah.
Raise a glass to Josh Hood, Treadstone Exile, folks.
Josh Hood, knuckleballer.
He is
All
good.
good.
We love Josh.
Here's
Cheers,
blood in your
brother.
eyes, boys.